Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden. We're going to head back up towards the Stockholm area and we're going to return to a brewery who I think are pretty novel actually, and I was only able to review their beers for the first time before Christmas, and this is their latest release that came out on the 2nd of May 2019 through Systembolaget here in Sweden. This is one of the local and small assortment releases. So we're going to head to Ekerö out to the west of Stockholm, and we're having a taste of yet another beer from the Nordic Kiwi Brewers, NKB. So this one is the Goodest Gold, which they're describing as a German ale, and from what I understand this one is something along the lines of a Pilsner actually. So it's got Maltere and Waiti hops in it this time, both New Zealand hops of course, because that is the kind of novelty with this brewery. They brew beers using only New Zealand hops, which is pretty cool because there's not that many breweries over here in Europe actually do that, and I have to admit I'm a huge fan of the New Zealand hops, having visited New Zealand back in 2015 and tried some of the craft beers down there. If you get the chance to go to New Zealand, beautiful place, and there's also some pretty damn awesome beers down there. The hops are particularly good because there's no like natural competitors to them down there, so they can breed them, they can do all sorts of things with them down there, and it's turned out pretty damn good, I have to say. But yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. This is my 4th review involving these guys. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Nordic Kiwi Brewers before. No doubt I will review some more in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the Nordic Kiwi Brewers then. So as I've mentioned to you already, Nordic Kiwi Brewers are based in Ekerö, which is a little bit out to the west of Stockholm, and they were founded by 2 New Zealanders. This is Craig Donovan and Karen Beattie, and they started the company back up in 2016. So apparently they began homebrewing because Swedish beer is quite expensive, and you know it is, but it's not as expensive as it can be in other places. But soon they began buying hops from Nelson in New Zealand, and they set up a commercial brewery in a room using equipment that they'd actually acquired from Blocket, which is basically the Swedish equivalent of like Craigslist, or I don't know what else you could compare it to from other countries. Like the Americans of course would recognise Craigslist as being the main one, but Karen apparently met his Swedish lady in New Zealand, and the pair later moved to London together, and he spent some time working in the construction industry before moving over to Sweden. Karen works full-time at the brewery while Craig is part-time, and he works for Ericsson, the big telecommunications company if you like. But the niche of this brewery, as I mentioned to you, is the fact that they brew solely with New Zealand hops, and this is the case for all of their beers. In late 2018 they moved to a new larger brewery in Ekerö, which has a floor space of 350 metres, and they brewed around 100,000 litres of beer in 2018, and they're hoping to double that over the course of this year in 2019. They've also hired a brewer from New Zealand who's recently joined them as well, and they plan to install a new brewing system to increase their capacity very, very soon actually. They're hoping to open up the brewery for tours and pub nights and things like that in the fairly near future. So yeah, a really quite novel brewery this one. The IPAs that I tried from them before, I remember the Tutti Frutti, and one of them was called something Summer. But the new IPAs that I had from these guys were really quite nice actually, so it will be cool to try something that's just a little bit more traditional from them, I guess you would say. So really curious to see how this one turns out, but a very novel brewery. I've had good experiences with them in the past, and hopefully this is yet another beer that kind of follows in the same footsteps as that. So yeah, and that's all you really need to know about the brewery just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, of course you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram. That'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on at the brewery, and you can check out their website and stuff like that too for a little bit more information. But yeah, really cool brewery this one, and I always like reviewing their beers actually, and I like reviewing beers involving New Zealand hops because I'm a big fan of those, as I've said. But yeah, to tell you a little bit about the hops in this one then, because they are so unique to Europe if you like. So Waiti is one that I've encountered quite a lot before. This was developed by New Zealand Plants and Food and released back in 2011, and this one gives you lots of kind of limey qualities, but it does also have a a little bit of a lemony note in there. Some people have said it has orange, but I think it's more of a limey quality that Waiiti gives you, to be honest. Maltere is one that I've never come across actually, so this one will be completely new to me. So this one again was developed by the New Zealand Plants and Food Company, and it was released in 2015, and this one is supposed to have a lot of passion fruit and grapefruit aroma and flavour to it. So yeah, this one I guess will be quite interesting actually. I don't know how I've never heard of that hop. I mean, you know, there's so many hops, the Rakau, the Nelson Sauvin, Waiiti, you know, there's so many different New Zealand hops these days. There's about 20 or 30 different varieties that you can buy, so I guess I'm saying I don't know how I've not heard of this one, but Maltere might be one of the new ones. If it was just released in 2015, it wouldn't have been around actually, I'm guessing, in a lot of beers when I was there, because it was around, I want to say it was somewhere around April 2015 that I was out in New Zealand actually. I really enjoyed my time there, I have to admit. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. We can get rid of the brewery notes now. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before you open it up. There you can see some of the kind of Maori style tribal artwork on this. It's really nice actually. If you do go to New Zealand, you'll see the little Maori houses and things like that. The artwork on them is absolutely beautiful. You know, I've always been a great fan of like Aboriginal and kind of African art and things like that. I think, like, you know, tribal art, if it's correct or politically correct to call it that, I honestly don't know. I do like these, you know, ancient styles of artwork. I think it's really quite cool actually. I'm by no means an art buff, but I do like things like that, I have to say. But yeah, you always get this little bit on the bottom there that tells you about the hops. So just bring that right up to the camera to let you see. You always get that on the Nordic Kiwi beers, and it tells you a little bit on the side as well. So it's apparently 25 IBUs and 5% alcohol, but yeah, should be quite nice. It's got a little bit of wheat malt in it. It says on the side here, our Good as Gold is a classic German ale that is fermented warm on ale yeast. This then comb conditioned like a lager. This brew has a large dose of New Zealand hops, giving it a modern crafty feel with citrus and mild floral notes. Char. And there you can see little drawings of Craig and Karen on the side too. But yeah, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm really curious to see how this beer turns out. Oh, it's going a little bit crazy. But yeah, oh, this is going to be nice. I mean, the last beers that I had from these guys were not in the freshest of conditions. They were still good, but they weren't in the freshest of conditions. But this one has only just been released, and you know, I can pretty much guarantee you that it will be pretty fresh actually. So yeah, as you can see, and as you would expect from a Pilsner beer, it's poured a lovely kind of bright golden colour. You can really smell the limes off this straight away, I will say that, and the limey notes are just jumping out at you, and there's definitely a sort of passion fruity tropical note coming out of it too. But as you can see, this has poured a lovely kind of pale golden straw. You can see there's a frothy, actually I'd revise that and say it's more bumpy. There's a big white head on this one, just about 1 finger or so. But yeah, pretty much exactly as you would expect in terms of appearance for a Pilsner beer. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a good degree of transparency to this one. It does have a little bit of haze to it. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and quite a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it does look pretty damn nice, but nothing particularly surprising about this one in terms of its appearance when you consider that it will, you know, it basically is a Pilsner type beer, this one, to be honest. But yeah, let's take a closer look at that aroma then and just see how we get on with this beer. Right. Okay, when you take the aroma of this beer in, you definitely get a little bit of a kind of white bready, wheaty sort of thing in there. There is an element of a kind of grainy and slightly almost vegetal quality to the aroma with this beer. Yeah, the malty side of the aroma is a bit strange actually. It does have all the things you'd expect of the Pilsner, but then it just has this almost vegetal, herbally type thing going on in the malt base. Not sure exactly what that is. Yeah, that's kind of unusual actually. The aroma to this one, I have to say, yeah, there's something a bit strange about that. But I know this beer is fresh, so I'm not sure, would it be, I don't think it's diacetyl or whatever, but yeah, there is just the aroma. You do get the nice kind of wheaty, white bready notes out of this. You do also get a little bit of a kind of biscuity sweetness out of it too, and you can definitely pick up almost the crispness of the Pilsner malts, but there is something in this in the malt base there that just smells a little like vegetables, or you know, a little bit herbal. There's something going on in there, and you do get this in some beers. I've had it in some stouts and things like that. I'm not sure exactly what it is that causes that, but yeah, there is something a bit strange in the aroma of the malt base with this beer. I'm really not sure exactly what that is, but when you sugar the beer up, it tends to come out a little bit more when you sugar the beer up. But when you let it settle, you start to get more of the kind of lighter, bready, wheaty notes. The wheaty note, incidentally, is quite subtle. It's definitely more of a kind of lighter body, that this, a lighter malty side that this beer has. Nice little bit of a biscuity sweetness too, as I was saying. And you've also, there's also just almost like a little touch of a woody note to this beer. So yeah, the malty side of the beer, of the aroma, is quite interesting. But yeah, you've also got a little bit of a, kind of earthiness to the hoppy side of things. You've got a nice little bit of a floral quality. I'm finding that the green side of the hops in this beer leans a little bit more towards the grassy side of things in terms of its aroma, and of course you've got these nice juicy New Zealand fruity notes. So yeah, as I was saying, a lot of lime coming out of this one, definitely more lime. Yeah, definitely more lime than lemon for me. And on the tropical side of the fruits, yeah, it's more of a passion fruity note. There might be something else in there, like a sort of papaya or something like that, but yeah, definitely more of a kind of passion fruity note. Passion fruit, as we said, will be the Maltere, and the Waiti is the one that's giving you these sort of limey notes. So yeah, it has pretty much everything you would expect of a kind of Pilsner style aroma, but the thing that's a bit strange about this for me, as I say, is that almost vegetal kind of herbal thing that's going on in the malt base. So yeah, let me know in the comment section below if you guys got that as well. I have had a couple of beers on the channel over the years that have had that sort of thing in it, but they've all actually tended to taste pretty good. So yeah, well, we'll get on and have a taste of this beer and just see what we think. So this one is the Good as Gold, one of the local and small assortment releases from the 2nd of May 2019 through Systembolaget. This one comes to you from Nordic Kiwi Brewers in Ekerö, just a little bit outside of Stockholm here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slanja, skull, as they say, chur. Yeah. So yeah, there's a teeny little bit of that coming out in the flavour of this beer, and it must be something in the malt base, because it's sitting there in the middle of the palate. It just has a little bit of this vegetal kind of herbal thing going on. I don't know if it's one of the types of malts that they're using or something like that. But yeah, in terms of being a Pilsner beer, or being a light, to me this one, it strikes me in terms of its flavour profile as being a little bit more like a Helles, to be honest with you. It just feels slightly more thick than a Pilsner might. It doesn't quite have the crispness. It's got a slightly more bready, oily mouthfeel to it. So to me, I'd be more inclined to say this is a Helles beer, to be honest with you. But it is nice how this beer goes together. So if you like a sort of German style Helles beer, then you will quite enjoy this one. I do actually know of some brewers in Germany that were using New Zealand hops. I mean, for example, the Kulturbrauerei in Heidelberg, where I used to live in Germany, the brewer there used to really like using some New Zealand hops, and he brewed a beautiful Helles beer, and that's where I really got into the German Helles style things. I can't remember what one it was he was using right enough. He did tell me at the time, but he was using New Zealand hops in his beers. And you know, it works. This is a style, it really works well actually. So thumbs up to the guys for thinking to do this one. This beer does give me a little bit of a nostalgia trip from my time in Germany, I have to say. So yeah, let's try and break the flavour of this one down then. And I will say that the more that you drink of this beer, it really does smooth out a little bit more. It almost sweetens up a little bit too. But in the middle of the palate, you can just feel that the middle of your tongue being blanketed by this nice smooth, almost slightly wheaty, bready quality there. You can just feel that blank in the middle of your tongue, as I say. A little bit further forward on the tongue, you do get a little bit of crispness out of the Pilsner malt, and I'm, as I said, feeling this one sweetening up a little bit. In the very centre of the palate, there is a little touch of a slightly biscuity malt. It reminds me a little bit of the McVitie's digestives. If you go right from the very centre of your palate and back, you will pick up at the very back of the tongue just a little touch of that kind of vegetable, herbal kind of thing that I'm talking about. Really, the more that you drink of this beer, the less you notice it, but it does come in a little bit at the start, and then the beer sort of smooths out and covers it up. I can't put my finger on exactly what that is. But yeah, it's a bit unusual, I have to say that. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but everything else about the beer is really pretty good, I have to say. While I would say it was quite apparent in the aroma, it's really not very apparent in the flavour. But yeah, with this malt base, as I say, it's very smooth. It's almost got if you come towards the front of the palate, there's almost just a little touch of a kind of woody thing going on with this one. It's got, yeah, if you go to the centre of your palate and then come out a little bit and move forward, you will pick up a little touch of a woody note to this one, and it gives the beer just that little bit more complexity. It really is. It's a bit like it's somewhere between a Pils and a Helles, but it's definitely got a little bit more of an oily character than you would expect from the traditional German beers, actually. But the malt base goes together really quite nicely. They've kept it quite simple, but it really does work. On the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a little touch of earthiness there. As you come further forward, it does actually perhaps get just a little bit more herbal, but then as you get towards the front kind of corners of the palate, there's a little touch of a floral, almost spiciness in there, but it really does stay quite smooth. And around the very front curve of the palate, you've just got a lighter kind of grassiness to the beer, and of course behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to come out of the beer. And again, this one's pretty straight up. It's got a nice limey base to it, and the further you go into the aftertaste, I think it has a little bit more passion fruit. Yeah, I'd say it's definitely a limey flavour there. There's maybe a teeny touch of like a papaya or something in there as well. It's definitely more than just a straight up lime. I'm getting a little bit of passion fruit out of this one. The passion fruit's a slightly darker flavour, of course, but there's definitely a little touch of a passion fruity note to this one. And the lime's kind of mixing in with that, and the fruitiness of the beer does stay quite straight up. The further you go into the aftertaste, the more limey the flavour becomes, and it really blends quite well with the sort of floral side of the hops, I have to admit, and also with the malt base. And that little vegetal thing I was talking about, the more and more you drink of this beer, the more that kind of fades into the background. And to be fair, that thing actually, that little thing I'm talking about actually goes quite well with the herbal side of the hops too. And I'm just really curious as to what's given the beer that flavour, and because it is quite an unusual thing to come across in a lager beer and or IPAs, or even anything for that matter. Actually, it is quite unusual, but it doesn't really affect the beer. The beer is pretty damn nice, I have to say. So for me, this one gets a thumbs up. I do like the stuff that Nordic Kiwi Brewers are doing, and this is a nice sort of almost. It is more of a Pilsner in fairness, but it's a little bit more of an oily Pilsner. It's got the flavour of a Pilsner and the flavour profile of a Pilsner, but it's not quite got the same mouthfeel. It's not quite as crisp as a normal Pilsner, I would say. This one's definitely a little bit more oily, to be honest with you, and a little bit sweeter perhaps as well. So in terms of the mouthfeel then, this beer for me, it's more mid-bodied, this one, but it's at the lower end of mid-bodied. The carbonation's very smooth. The mouthfeel overall is pretty oily. You've got a nice little bit of hoppy bitterness to this. It did say on the can that it's 25 IBUs. I know if you're drinking New England IPAs and things like that, most of them sit around the 25 or 30 mark, so it's kind of in that same region. The malt base, like I said, very smooth, but also has a little touch of sweetness to it as well, and you've got some nice juicy and oily fruity characters to this beer. I've always said that the New Zealand hops, the fruity notes that you get out of them is very, very oily, and that's really contributing to the overall mouthfeel of this beer, I have to say. But I really like how this one is is going together. It is a nice sort of slightly more oily Pilsner type beer, this. So yeah, if you get the chance, have a go at it for yourself and just and see what you think. I think they've done a good job with this one, and I would like to see them try a few more things. Most of their beers, right enough, are at the light end of the spectrum. It would be interesting to see them do something on the darker side of the spectrum. Maybe a German Dunkel could be one that they could work on, or even like a black IPA, a New Zealand black IPA would be a very interesting thing for them to try as well. That's maybe some future projects for the guys at Nordic Kiwi Brewers. But like I say, a very unique brewery in the regard, in the sense that they only use the New Zealand hops, which aren't all that common over here. So I really like that about them, actually. But yeah, to me, a really nice, slightly more oily Pilsner, this one. A bit unusual in the aroma, like I was saying, that vegetal herbal kind of thing. But I do like what they've done with this beer. I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. I'd be very curious to try it on tap, to be honest, and see if it comes across as even more oily than this. So yeah, if you like your Pilsner style beers and you like New Zealand IPAs, then this one will give you a little bit of both, actually. So an interesting, almost hybrid type beer. It's been cool to have my first encounter with the Muteri, if you like. I do wonder if the green side of the hops on that are a little bit herbal. But yeah, a nice beer, this one, and it's always cool to review beers from this brewery. So I hope you guys have enjoyed my take on this one. So let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Nordic Kiwi Brewers, and I'm sure we'll return to more beers from these guys in the near future. I would like to see them try a black IPA with some of these New Zealand hops. I think that would be really interesting. Even a black Imperial IPA would be a really interesting proposition as well. But thank you again for watching, and make sure you like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys very soon with more beer reviews. This is the Good as Gold, a slightly more oily type Pilsner beer at 5% ABV from the Nordic Kiwi Brewers in Ekerö to the west of Stockholm here in Sweden. Until the next time, it's Lange just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Skål, cheer.